Hello my friends, welcome to Carpo's YouTube channel. Voted the greatest YouTube channel for 47 years in a row. Can you believe that? Can you believe the achievement that we've made? 47 years, yeah. I know a lot of people say YouTube hasn't even been around that long, but you know, you just don't understand. I thought I would make kind of a joking afternoon video, but really this is to answer a question. And this is something I wanted to do a long time ago. Start answering questions people ask me on YouTube. Generally, I get a lot of comments and not a lot of specific questions. And when I do get one, I usually answer it on the spot, leave a comment as much as I, can possibly keep up with. If a person doesn't comment on a video within the first few days, then sometimes YouTube won't give me a notification, so I don't know and I can't respond. But I do my best to respond, and often to the surprise of some people who see one of my videos with a lot more views and they figure they can leave some rude comment, and that I won't notice it, and that I always do, and I call them out on it, but end up making a lot of friends that way too. I've had a few in the past about religion and whatnot. Some guy made a comment the other day about how I should scrub my teeth with charcoal because they're yellow, and I was like, hey dude, I just paid how much for these? These are brand new teeth, for a lot of my subscribers who know that. So anyhow, I have a lot of interesting people. Most of the subscribers I have are pretty kind and considerate. And because of that, because I have such a tight community here, I really want to start answering questions that you guys have. Now, I've done Q&As in the past. I've done them about general Q&A, ask me a question, and it usually takes me about 15 or 20 minute videos to answer all the questions, but I'm just going to pick out about a question a week and do my best to answer that question. And this week I decided to just print it out, so I had it on a piece of paper here. And this was in reference to the video I made about assholes the other day. It was called 3 Kinds of Assholes in Life, and No, You Can't Avoid Them. And I did answer her comment on there, and Sarah J is the name of the subscriber. And she says, I like your channel, Carpo. This was a good broader perspective on a-holes. I would love to see another one about a-holes we encounter that are more subtle. The people in our day-to-day lives, we may struggle with understanding their intentions, and when what they try to present seems not what is below the surface, and it is asshole behavior towards other people, because I see a lack of empathy and a very shallow and judgmental mindset often. And I thought that was the perfect question to, since it's the only one I've really got lately, I would lend an answer to that. Basically what she's saying is, I made a video about not putting up with bullshit in your life, not dealing with assholes, but there's an aspect of that where you have to interact with people, whether it be friends, family, or co-workers, and that's usually the full, triad, if you will. Friends, family, co-workers, friends, family, co-workers. You hang out with your friends, you come home to your family, you go to work, it goes back and forth. And in that time, we're going to meet a lot of people who are, let's just say, not on the same page as we are. And we have to cope with these people. There's no way to get around it. And so the question I guess you're asking, Sarah, is what do we do about these people? And especially the ones where we can't really pin down, since you said subtle, I'm assuming you mean the ones we can't pin down exactly what it is about them that we just can't stand. Now look, I've had several people in my life that I just stopped interacting with, especially some old friends who maybe had a totally different outlook on what life was about. People who maybe abused their privilege of using substances, because I'm a huge advocate of let's just say altered states. I like altered states. I'm not going to fight against that. I'm not some clean freak AA guy. But I'm also not an abuser who likes to lay around like a junkie. I have my happy medium. I don't try to justify that to anyone. I don't try to explain why I am the way I am. It works for me for now. And that's the way you have to be with everything. The reason why we see a lot of people as assholes is because they either say things that we don't agree with, or they judge us based on what we do. Now, let me say, there are plenty of other reasons. Some people abuse us physically or mentally. Some people want to call us names. And then there's this kind of subtle arrogance with some people. And let me say, I'm not arrogant, but I am confident. And there's a huge difference because I've been arrogant in the past. I grew up as a guy who, as a teenager thought I had everything figured out like everybody else. But I've always had a subtle awareness that I don't know shit. And in later years this comes out more and more. Right now I've got to the point where I don't feel like I have to explain to people why I can't put up with certain types of bullshit. But I still have to because those people are going to be part of my life. Now, let's say your cousin or your friend has a completely different mindset about whatever it might be, religion, guns, politics, the environment. And you have to decide for yourself whether or not these people are worth having in your life to any degree where you have discussions with them. You can have civil interactions with people that you don't agree with. And I guess the example would be the right and left winger, right? You have completely different people with totally different mindsets. One person is a huge Trump supporter, right? It's the greatest example. The Trump supporter in the family and then the liberal in the family. They get together at Christmas and they end up fighting about politics. Don't waste your time. If people have their mind made up and people think the way they think, you can plant a seed and walk away from it. If you try to defend that, you try to fight, that's when you get into arguments with people. Now, sometimes people aren't, it's not even really about an argument physically or mentally, it's more about other people trying to manipulate you. There are some really intelligent people out there who have some really fucked up beliefs. Let me just put it this way. Just because a person seems intelligent, they use big words, they think they know what they're talking about, who knows? Maybe they're quoting Bukowski because they just went to college. Who knows? People have all these moments in their life where they think they have shit figured out. And let me tell you, not one of these douchebags does. And I'm a douchebag too. I'm talking about, by saying douchebag, when I said that I thought, is that offensive? I don't give a shit. It reminded me of a situation I had the other day, because interacting with people is difficult. Not just friends and family, but people we don't know very well. And so in today's world, it's hard to talk to people because of not just differences, but this kind of politically correct culture a lot of people have. And we may be guilty of it. We may be the ones who are becoming overly sensitive. I'm not saying that derogatory or offensive comments are acceptable, but I'm saying that they come up and they're not always meant to offend, and they're not always the way we attribute, like racist, person's racist or they're hateful. Let me give you an example, because this, I don't even know if I want to make this video or mention this story, but I went to pick up my kid from school the other day. He's 10 years old. He's in 5th grade. His teacher called me over. Now his teacher's kind of this bigger guy. He's not fat. He's just a buffer guy. I think he's he's probably into sports. He seems like a really really nice guy. I mean, really kind, generous. My kid loves him. He calls me over and I was like, oh shit, my kid must have done something. So he calls my son over too, and he starts talking. And he goes, yeah, well, they were in class today and they were talking, and he goes, yeah, well, your son said something about another kid in another class. He called him a burnt chicken nugget. And I kind of laughed. Now, there is an internet meme on, and it's a little kid, and yes, he is a colored kid, and he says, sometimes I feel like a burnt chicken nugget. It's something that all the kids are saying. If you have kids, memes and these quotes just come and go, right? My thing is this: let it go. Don't make a big deal about shit, and it won't be a big deal. But he had to bring the kid over and talk to us both about it and say, and I said, yeah, well, what's the problem with it? He goes, well, the kid was Hispanic. As if I'm supposed to just go, oh goodness. And I was like, okay. So what's the problem? And he goes, well, you saying that about people, it makes them feel marginalized. We talked for a minute, and I was like, well, I don't really see it as an issue, because what I asked him was this: do you think it was intentional? And he goes, oh, no. And I was like, oh, okay, because if it was, maybe we could resolve the issue. And I looked at Emerson and I was like, is it intentional? He's like, no, I'm just, he was kind of clueless as to why it was an issue. And then I was like, well, And I was like, I said, hey, I'm not arguing with you. I just want to, figure this out from a different perspective. I was like, and I looked at him and I said, I understand that there's a lot of kind of politically correct, the PC culture is what I said in this day and age, and that maybe we're overly sensitive. Is that one of those cases? And he goes, oh, no, no, no. And I was like, okay. So I was like, you think he meant it because he was dark skinned? And he goes, no, no. And I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. I was like, I'd have to think about this. That's what I told him. And I was like, maybe it was a subconscious thing. Is that what you think? And he's like, no, no, no. And I was like, well, if it's not subconscious and it's not conscious, then what's the problem? And I looked at him and I said, are you perhaps the one who's making this, into a bigger deal than it is? And he goes, no, no, no. And I was like, that's when I was like, look, I'm not trying to, I could tell he was not happy with the fact I was confronting him on this. And I said, look, I said, I'm with you and I understand where you're coming from, but it's my opinion. I have a different opinion on this. And I think that maybe we're being overly sensitive. And the reason why is because I feel like if we make it seem like a huge deal, then people are going to use it as a huge deal. And the reason why I brought that whole story into this is because if you make a big deal about a kid calling a kid a chicken nugget, then he's going to know that that's a great way to get attention and insult somebody in the future, right? Instead of just letting it go. Talking to me in private would have been better, probably. But my kid told me he got written up, and he didn't even know what that meant. He's like, he said he had to write me up. And I was like, really? He told me that later, and I was like, write you up? Really? And I'm left-leaning. I'm a liberal-minded person, okay? Now, the reason why I brought this subject up is because when we're talking to our friends and family, especially even people we don't agree with, we have totally different opinions. Often it's a miscommunication. We just can't get our point across quite right, and maybe we blow things out of proportion, and we're not willing to step back and say, okay, maybe this was too much. Maybe I just kind of overthought this. And this goes for politics, this goes for religion, this goes for so many aspects of life. But when we've built a certain relationship with a religious thought or a political thought, or a mindset about anything, it's really hard to break away from that. And so when we have to interact with people that we don't agree with, what it comes down to is having thick enough skin to say, I believe what I believe. I have evidence for it. You can look at mine, I'll look at yours. Cool. Let's move on, because life is bigger than fighting over stupid shit. I could care less about really politics or the world. Honestly, you know what matters to me? My fucking family. The people that I live with. The people that I love. The people that love me. And we argue. My wife and I once in a while disagree on certain subjects. Does it mean that we fight about it or call each other names or get mad or yell? No. I haven't yelled at my wife or she yelled at me in a long ass time, and that was probably some stupid shit I did when I got yelled at the last time. But there's the culture is changing. Helicopter parents and parents that aren't playing, playgrounds that are overly safe. That kind of. I watched this show earlier on Vox about these what they call adventure playgrounds back in the 50s. They were invented over in Europe, and it's just where kids could play with hammers and nails and crates and tires and stuff and actually build and make things instead of just being stuck on these perfectly safe structures. It's the metaphor for the society we live in. We put up our walls and we live in our safe spaces. And so we're afraid to even talk about subjects because we've attached ourselves to the subjects. And so I'm sorry to go full circle, Sarah. I know you asked about specifically that, the question of dealing with these people. Well, that's it. Realizing these things. Finding out that we're all unique, we all have our own opinions, and that it's okay. If you can let it go, they can let it go. And it's okay to disagree and have different ideas. Now, those are just different opinions. I haven't even got into the aspect of when people are lying to you or to your face or screwing you over. There are certain people in your life you will have to abandon. I had to leave most of my friends behind when I was younger because they were either still high, still getting in trouble, or I just didn't agree with their life philosophy. Does it mean I hate them? No. Does it mean I don't want to see them again? No. And the same thing with any family or anybody you know. We interact with the people we interact with. Don't feel obligated to interact with anyone, even if it's your best friend, your father, your cousin. Just because somebody's blood relative doesn't mean you should feel obligated to do certain things. If you don't agree with the person, hey, they don't have to be part of your life. You know, life is complicated. We try to live based on traditions because in the past that's all we knew. You know, respect your elders, work hard, retire, all these different bullshit ideas. But now we expect more. So sometimes we surround ourselves with people who don't give us that same sort of inspiration that we need. And it doesn't have to be inspiration or wisdom or anything like that. It has to be just love. The people around us have to love us for who we are and to not get angry at us for having our own opinions. And so that's what I would say to Sarah J. I believe it was Sarah J. and her question. Better make sure, right? Yeah, Sarah J. So I appreciate the question. That's the best I can answer it. After watching the Paul Stamets interview with Joe Rogan the other day and finishing it today, the conclusion that he came to that I agree with is basically everybody should take mushrooms. Psychedelics can help give you this empathy that you need to understand that other people are just other people, but more than that, that your ego doesn't matter. So many people out there say they don't care about their ego, and at the same time they get so butthurt over the stupidest things. And you're going to deal with those people too. And the most interesting thing about psychedelics, like psilocybin mushrooms, is something else he said. He said, after you've taken them and you've come down the next day, and you take a nap, you wake up, and you look over at a bag of mushrooms, what's the first thing you think? Fuck no. I don't want to touch those for a long time. And this happens with most psychedelics. You're done for a while. And that's not the same with alcohol or crack or heroin or amphetamines. You're ready to do more. And so these drugs can reverse this addictive tendency. And so maybe that would be a better way to connect us with one another empathetically through these psychedelic experiences. But that's my own opinion. It's kind of a replacement of a bad memory with a good memory and realizing that you're just people. And it's hard for people to remember that they're just people. I know that sounds ridiculous, but folks are so wrapped up in their illusion of what happiness is that they just fight amongst themselves. And so I hope that answers your question, Sarah. I'm going to go now. Thanks for coming. And oh no, it's zooming in again. God damn it. Don't do it. No. Don't. No, 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 no.